Welcome to our deep dive into the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
We're working with excerpts translated and commented on by Germ Dorje.
Okay.
I have to admit, when I first saw this one on your list, I thought, whoa,
Yeah.
that's intense.
It's a big one.
But it turns out this book isn't some horror story collection.
No.
It's more like a travel guide
Yeah.
for the afterlife.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's
like that.
fascinating. Even if you're not a Buddhist,
Okay.
the Dalai Lama actually wrote an introduction for this edition,
Wow.
and he frames it beautifully.
Okay.
He asks what makes a person.
Hmm.
We often think of ourselves as these solid, unchanging beings.
Right. Like, I am me, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You are you, and you're always going to be you.
Yep.
But this book challenges that.
So instead of like a fixed self,
Right.
what does the Tibetan Book of the Dead say we're made of?
It describes us as a combination of 5 aggregates:
Okay.
form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Imagine them as constantly interacting,
Okay.
kind of like ingredients in a recipe that make up the experience of being you.
Okay, so we're not these static things.
Wow.
We're dynamic processes.
Right.
But how does that connect to the afterlife and this whole Bardo concept?
Well, if a person is this collection of aggregates,
Yeah.
what happens when we die? Buddhism emphasizes impermanence.
Right.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
Nothing stays fixed.
Right.
The book uses this powerful image of returning empty-handed from life
Wow.
if you haven't engaged with spiritual teachings.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
It makes you think about what truly matters, right?
Yeah.
If it's not possessions or achievements,
Exactly.
what should we be focused on?
That's where the Bardo comes in.
Okay.
It's the intermediate state between death and rebirth. Think of it like a journey your consciousness takes.
Okay.
And this book acts as a guidebook.
So it's not just oblivion after death.
What's
There's
that?
a process,
Yes.
different stages.
Exactly. The book describes the Bardo as this active process,
Okay.
not a passive waiting room.
I see.
First, there's the moment of death itself,
Okay.
where your consciousness separates from your physical body.
Yeah.
Then you enter a stage where you experience reality in a whole new way,
Okay.
encountering visions and signs reflecting your mental state.
Okay.
Finally, there's the search for rebirth.
Whoa. Okay. So death is less like hitting a wall.
Yes.
And more like setting off on a new adventure.
I like that.
But one shaped by your own mind.
Yes.
I'm already feeling like I need to take notes.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's definitely mind-bending stuff.
Okay.
And the book doesn't just describe this journey.
Okay.
It offers instructions on how to navigate it.
Like a cosmic GPS.
Exactly.
But how can you possibly give instructions to someone who's well dead?
Think of it as preparing for a trip.
Okay.
The book talked about practices like visualization mantras and meditation
Okay.
that can help you during life and in the Bardo. By familiarizing yourself with these practices,
Yeah.
you're essentially packing your bags for the journey ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just about what happens after death. It's about how we live our lives now.
Exactly.
So what are some of these practices that can help us navigate the Bardo?
One of the key practices is recognizing what the book calls intrinsic awareness.
Okay.
It's that pure, unconditioned state of your mind, often hidden beneath all the thoughts and emotions swirling around.
Oh, it's like finding that calm center within ourselves, even when things chaotic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book says that cultivating this awareness while you're alive
Right.
is crucial for a smooth journey through the Bardo.
Okay.
There's this incredible line that talks about how realizing intrinsic awareness prevents you from falling into a primordial vacuous emptiness.
Wow.
It's as if this awareness acts as an anchor,
Got it.
grounding you in the midst of the Bardo's vastness.
Okay. This intrinsic awareness thing is sounding more and more important.
It's a big one.
But how do we actually cultivate it?
Yeah.
Is it like meditation or?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and one we can definitely delve into deeper.
Okay.
But first, I think it's important to understand the different stages of the Bardo in more detail.
Okay.
Ready to explore what the book says about those?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so let's dive into the different stages of the Bardo.
Okay.
The book paints a pretty vivid picture of what you might encounter,
Yeah.
filled with lights, sounds, even encounters with deities.
I have to admit, that's the part that always throws me off.
Really?
Deities.
Yeah.
Like running into Buddha with a halo and everything.
Not quite. It's important to remember that in this context,
Okay.
deities are more like archetypes.
Okay.
They represent different aspects of your own mind, both positive and negative.
Okay.
The book describes peaceful deities embodying things like compassion and wisdom,
Right.
while wrathful deities represent those intense emotions we all grapple with: anger, jealousy, attachment.
So it's less about literal gods and more about confronting different parts of yourself.
Exactly.
That makes it a lot less intimidating, but still, I can imagine feeling totally overwhelmed if I was dead and suddenly saw a wrathful deity.
It would definitely be intense,
Mm-hmm.
but the book emphasizes recognizing those deities as projections of your own mind.
Okay.
It's like looking in a mirror, but the reflection is amplified and might not be what you want to see.
Okay, so if I saw a wrathful deity, it wouldn't be some external judgment.
Right.
It'd be my own anger or fear staring back at me.
Exactly.
That's a powerful concept.
It is. The book advises not to get caught up in fear or judgment when you encounter these deities.
Okay.
Instead, it encourages recognizing their empty, illusory nature. It's about seeing through those intense emotions to the underlying awareness,
Right.
that calm center we were talking about earlier.
So even in the Bardo, it's all about cultivating that intrinsic awareness.
Yes.
It's like it becomes your compass guiding you through those chaotic landscapes.
Precisely. And the book outlines specific practices to help with that.
Okay. Like what?
For example, when you encounter a wrathful deity,
Yeah.
you're encouraged to recite mantras and focus on qualities like compassion to pacify those energies. It even talks about visualizing yourself merging with the deity,
Whoa.
dissolving its solidity.
That sounds almost like those meditation techniques where you observe your thoughts without judgment, letting them pass through you.
It's a very similar concept. The idea is to detach from those emotions,
Okay.
to see them as fleeting and impermanent, not as defining aspects of your being.
This is all making the Bardo sound less like a passive state and more like an active process of growth and transformation.
Absolutely. The book really emphasizes that the Bardo is a unique opportunity to break free from those habitual patterns and attachments we carry throughout life.
That makes me think about those near-death experiences people describe,
Yeah.
where they feel a sense of peace and even profound insights. Could the Bardo explain that?
It's possible. While near-death experiences and the Bardo are distinct concepts,
Okay.
there are certainly parallels.
Okay.
Both suggest that consciousness continues beyond physical death,
Right.
and that this transition can be accompanied by heightened awareness and insights.
This is also fascinating, but it does make me wonder,
Yeah.
if the Bardo is a projection of our own minds,
Uh-huh.
does that mean it's not real?
That's a great question, and one that has been debated by philosophers and spiritual practitioners for centuries.
Yeah, sure.
The book doesn't necessarily deny the reality of the Bardo experience,
Okay.
but it emphasizes that ultimate reality is beyond our ordinary perceptions and conceptions.
So even if it's a projection of our minds,
Right.
it doesn't mean the experience is any less significant or impactful.
Exactly, and the book provides detailed descriptions of the types of visions and experiences you might encounter.
Okay.
For example, it talks about the 6 lights representing the 6 realms of existence. Depending on your karmic tendencies, you might be drawn to a specific light. But the book advises against clinging to any of them.
So even if you're drawn to the light representing a heavenly realm,
Yeah.
that's not the ultimate goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the most blissful realms are still part of the cycle of existence,
Right.
subject to impermanence and eventually suffering.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal, according to the book, is to transcend the cycle altogether,
Wow.
to achieve liberation.
Okay, so navigating the Bardo isn't about finding a comfy spot in some heavenly realm.
Nope.
It's about using those experiences to break free from the cycle of birth and death.
Exactly.
That's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is, and the book offers specific tools and guidance to help you on that journey.
Speaking of tools, I'm curious about those specific practices you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Are they only meant for the deceased, or can we use them now to prepare ourselves?
That's a fantastic question. While the book is primarily a guide for the deceased,
Right.
many of the practices it describes are incredibly beneficial for the living as well. In fact, engaging with them now can be seen as a way to pre-pack for the Bardo, so to speak.
So even if I'm not facing death right now, learning about the Bardo and practicing those techniques can help me prepare for that eventual journey.
Absolutely. By familiarizing yourself with the book's teachings and practicing the techniques it describes,
Okay.
you're essentially equipping yourself with the knowledge and skills to navigate those transitions with more awareness and less fear.
Okay.
It's like having a dress rehearsal for a play.
Right.
You're less likely to be caught off guard when the curtain rises.
I love that analogy. It takes away some of the mystery and dread surrounding death. But what about those of us who are left behind?
Yeah.
Does the book say anything about how we can help loved ones who are dying or has passed away?
It does. There's a whole section dedicated to the role of the attending lama or spiritual teacher
Okay.
who can guide the deceased through the bardo using specific prayers and instructions.
So it's like having a spiritual guide for the afterlife, but what if a lama isn't available? Can family and friends do anything to help?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book emphasizes the importance of creating a peaceful and supportive environment for the dying person.
Okay.
Loved ones can read passages from the book aloud, recite mantras,
Right.
and remind the person of their spiritual practices.
It sounds like a beautiful way to support them during that transition and after death.
Yeah.
Can we still help?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even after someone has passed away, loved ones can continue to practice for their benefit,
Okay.
sending positive energy and offering guidance through the bardo.
It's a powerful reminder that death doesn't have to be the end of connection.
Right.
It's more like a shift in the way we relate to our loved ones.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the continuity of consciousness, the journey that extends beyond the physical realm.
This deep dive is giving me a whole new perspective on death and the afterlife.
Got it.
I'm starting to see it less as an ending and more as a continuation, a transformation.
That's the beauty of the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
It offers a map for navigating the unknown, a way to approach death with understanding rather than fear.
We've covered a lot of ground already, the different stages of the bardo,
Yeah.
the importance of cultivating intrinsic awareness of the role of loved ones in supporting the deceased. But there's still so much more to explore.
You're right. The book goes into great detail about specific visions, symbols, and practices.
Right.
Ready to delve into some of those fascinating details.
Let's do it. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Go ahead.
We've talked about the bardo, those 5 aggregates that make up a person, and even how loved ones can help during the transition.
Right.
But this book is full of such vivid imagery. I'm ready to hear about some of those wild details.
It definitely gets pretty trippy.
Yeah.
The book describes all sorts of visions and encounters you might experience in the bardo, from peaceful landscapes to terrifying, wrathful deities.
Yeah, the deities are what really capture the imagination, right? I mean, are we talking glowing figures, multiple arms, the whole 9 yards?
The book definitely doesn't skimp on the details, but remember,
Yeah.
these deities are symbolic representations of different energies or qualities of mind.
Okay.
Peaceful deities embody compassion, wisdom,
Right.
while wrathful ones represent those intense emotions. We often try to avoid anger, pride, attachment.
Okay, so it's less about literal gods and goddesses and more about encountering different aspects of your own psyche.
Exactly.
But still, if I were dead and suddenly face to face with a wrathful deity, I think I'd freak out a bit.
It would be intense for sure.
Yeah.
But the book emphasizes that the key is recognizing these figures as projections of your own mind. It's like looking in a mirror, but the reflection is amplified.
Right.
It might not be what you want to see.
So instead of freaking out, the goal is to remember it's not some external force judging you. It's your own inner stuff bubbling up.
Yeah.
That's a challenging but fascinating perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly. The book advises not to be afraid or repulsed by these wrathful appearances.
Okay.
Instead, it encourages you to recognize their empty, illusory nature. It's about seeing through the intensity of those emotions to the underlying awareness,
Right.
that calm center we've been talking about.
So even in the bardo, that intrinsic awareness is key.
Yeah.
It's like a superpower that helps you navigate those tricky encounters.
Precisely, the book outlines specific practices to help with this, too.
Like what?
For example, when encountering a wrathful deity,
Right.
it encourages reciting mantras to pacify the energy it represents.
Okay.
There's even a visualization practice where you imagine merging with the deity,
Whoa.
dissolving its apparent solidity.
That sounds intense. It's almost like facing your fears head on, but on a cosmic level.
It is, but the book suggests that if you can navigate these challenges, it can lead to a profound level of liberation. It's about using those intense bardo experiences as opportunities for growth and transformation. Now, you mentioned that the bardo is full of these wild details, like the 6 lights representing different realms of existence.
Right.
But I'm also curious about those intriguing practices the book describes, like the ritual deception of death and consciousness transference. What are those all about?
The ritual deception of death is fascinating.
Okay.
It's a set of practices aimed at avoiding untimely death,
Okay.
often done for someone seriously ill or facing a dangerous situation.
Right.
It involves visualizations, mantras, and offerings to appease the forces of death.
So it's like a last-ditch effort to bargain with fate.
It's more nuanced than that. It's not about literally cheating death,
Okay.
but rather about harmonizing with the natural order of things.
Right.
It acknowledges that death is inevitable, but seeks to prolong life
Okay.
and create the most favorable conditions for the transition.
It sounds like a way to approach death with more agency, not just passively accepting it.
Right.
What about consciousness transference? That one sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? It's described as a practice where a highly skilled yogi can transfer their consciousness at the time of death to a specific realm
Okay.
or even into another being.
Wow. Okay, so you're basically directing where your consciousness goes after death.
That's the idea. It's considered a way to ensure a favorable rebirth
Hmm.
or even achieve liberation from the cycle of existence altogether.
That's pretty mind-blowing. It speaks to the book's overall message that death isn't the end.
Right.
It's more like a transition, and we have some level of influence over that journey.
Exactly. The Tibetan Book of the Dead isn't just a description of what happens after death.
Right.
It's a guidebook
Okay.
offering tools and techniques for navigating that transition consciously.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opening experience. I've always been curious about what happens after death.
Yeah.
But this book takes it to a whole new level. It's like it provides a map for the unknown, a way to approach death with understanding rather than fear.
I agree. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a treasure trove of wisdom and insight.
Yeah.
Even if you don't subscribe to all of its beliefs, it offers a unique perspective on life-death and the nature of reality itself.
So for our listener who chose this deep dive, what's the biggest takeaway you'd want them to walk away with?
I think the most important message is that death is not something to be feared, but a natural transition that we can prepare for.
Okay.
The book encourages us to cultivate awareness, practice compassion, and live a life that aligns with our deepest values.
It's a reminder that how we live our lives now can have a profound impact on our experience of death and what lies beyond.
Exactly. And that recognizing our true nature, that intrinsic awareness,
Right.
is the key to navigating the bardo skillfully
Right.
and ultimately achieving liberation.
This has been an incredible journey through the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We've explored the Bardo stages, encountered peaceful and wrathful deities, and delved into some truly mind-bending practices. I'm definitely left with a lot to ponder.
Me too, and I hope our listener feels the same way. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a rich and complex text that offers endless opportunities for exploration and reflection.
If you're intrigued by what you've heard today, I encourage you to seek out this book and explore its teachings further. You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself, about life, and about the journey that awaits us all.